Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our very good friends, Courtney Truss and Sam Clement. Y'all say hello.
How's it going?
Hey, John.
Hey, guys. I'm doing fantastically. Thank you for asking. However, right now, I think there are a lot of people probably in their junior or senior year of college, maybe a few years out, that are anxiously awaiting whatever's going to come down from Washington about student debt relief or student loan relief, all that stuff. Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? Inquiring minds want to know. No one quite knows. Does the administration even have the power to do this? But Sam and Courtney, what does this all mean, really, in your estimation? Does it mean for young people? And then also, what does it mean for just education in general?
I think it means kicking the can down the road for the problems we have, is what I think it means.
And I don't think most juniors or seniors are worried too much about their loan debt. I think the parents maybe are worried about their loan debt. And then also you think about parents that have those seniors in high school that are going to college looking at how much it's going to cost. I mean, even now, when you look at the average cost of sending a child to college, 10 or 50,000 isn't that much.
Well, what's interesting about just student loan debt, a lot of people are just kind of misinformed about and believe that the private sector actually issues all these loans. The federal government took control of that thing over a decade ago, and really all the student loan debt that's out there, for all intents and purposes, with the exception of some smaller loans that might be collateralized or something, but what we think of as student loans in the United States is overwhelmingly backed by the federal government, issued by the federal government, federal debt in some form or fashion. This amount has grown to some $1.6 trillion. Courtney, that's a lot of money. And think about going back really to Neolithic times. Back when I graduated from college in 1990, Courtney and Sam, this might seem very difficult for you to believe, but I've looked it up in the past. The total student loan, amount of student loans outstanding, there's a place called Sallie Mae, all that stuff, was around $86 billion in 1990. Fast forward, gosh, it just seems like a couple of years ago. But, it's
just a couple.
6 years and then my
6
entire
years,
life.
what is it? Why don't you, in any event, 32 years later, that number, if I read this morning, 1.611 trillion. Sam and Courtney, I'm beginning to think that perhaps all this profligacy, all this money being thrown out in terms of student loan debt and whatnot, might have had some kind of impact on just how rapidly college tuitions have gone up over the last several decades.
It's kind of funny that, the federal government steps in and for a program and then it balloons and gets much, much worse, it seems like.
Courtney, what do you think about that?
Well, as someone who graduated with student loan debt, at that time, there's always this middle road, right? There are people who really can't afford college or, would qualify for a lot more need-based, student loans. And then there's this middle sector, right? There's the upper sector that can pay. It doesn't matter if it's $150,000, $200,000. They've got the means. But this middle sector of people make too much to qualify, but not enough to really cover it. And so you've got all of these young professionals who, have parents who went to college or, could be going for the first time, but for the most part, that's expected of them. They go to college and they get maybe a liberal arts degree in art history or nothing wrong with that, but business administration or history, right?
I thought you were a poli-sci major.
I am. I'm in banking.
Dancing all around it.
All these but poli-sci.
Right, but we have these majors, and it was like, I look back on it, and I'm like, I wish that someone would have said, what are you going to do with it? If I wasn't going to be a lawyer, then what was the point? Like, it can be like, okay, if you go and get this major, this is kind of the jobs that you would be set to do. And I know they do like tests and stuff like that, but it was just kind of like, this is how much money you'll make at that job. Like, do you really need an Ivy League education to be a teacher, which are very important people, but yet teachers only make a salary of this range, and you're going to have student loan debt in this range. I mean, I feel like those conversations are missed, and I don't think that parents are given those tools to communicate that to kids. But to me, as someone who had to pay money for many, many years after graduating, I was bitter about it, that I wasn't part of that conversation.
She's a bitter young woman. That was your dark period.
Yes, yes.
She was a goth, I think.
I think so. Black nails, all that. But, I don't think... It's hard to not point the finger slightly at the people handing out the money for all this when, I mean, all of us have bought a house or bought a car,
Yeah.
and how much more difficult it is to get money to do those things and the hoops you have to jump through. And then you can say, hey, I'm going to go get a $50,000, $60,000 private school education for a degree that makes 20, 30, 40,000, what have you. Who should be lending money out for that?
Well, that's the whole thing. Back when it was more private sector based as opposed to federal government based, no decent lender is going to underwrite someone who's having a as you said, art history degree. Although I've known people that have gone on and done absolutely fantastic things with their career with their art history degree, but no one's going to sit there and say $50,000 for an art history degree. No.
Yeah.
But the federal government isn't going to come in and say, hey, you can't do that. So the money just has flowed very freely. And really, higher education has had no reason to decrease its costs.
No.
Because here we have not only a bunch of people applying for college, we're telling everyone, you have to go to school.
Yeah.
That's the message.
Get a job, right.
You have to go to school to get a decent job. Never minding welders can make $100,000, over-the-road truckers can make a nice
Plumbers
income,
make good money.
Masons make all that stuff. We're telling people you've got to go to college. That's the key to success, and the numbers might suggest that's accurate. Well, I mean, in aggregate. So we're telling people this: you got to go, you got to go, you got to go, and then the government just opens up the spigot and says, not only do you have to go, we're going to give you the money to go. And that's the message that a lot of people get. So it's like, I've got this money, and when you're young, 18, 19, 20 years of age, borrowing money, you don't really know what in the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way, and you can counsel 16, 17, and 18-year-olds about the horrors, getting too much debt. You know how many of them are going to listen to you?
Yeah.
Absolutely none of them.
Right.
And
All of
so-
them have this like fantasy of what college is, and
Yes.
that they have to go because all their friends are going.
And so the bills get paid and all that stuff, and then
Right.
all of a sudden the notice comes, and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And so that's where people kind of fall into the, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. How was I allowed to borrow all this money? Well, the federal government, your great friend, kept on giving you all this money at an attractive interest rate, I'm sure of it. But it's kind of almost like giving donuts to a bunch of morbidly obese people. It's like, here, you want some more? You want some more? And so that's kind of what's happened in a lot of regards. But even so, Courtney, you brought up a good point about the various people that are taking on student debt. A huge chunk of the people that have the massive student loan bills are really those people that have gone to graduate school, law school,
Or
medical school,
private schools,
or something along those lines. Kind of the tale of woe about the young person that went through the local state school or a directional school within their state and borrowed some money and all that stuff, coming out with $250,000 worth of student loan debt. That's what kind of the narrative is. That's the story that kind of comes down. That is far more the exception than the rule. The vast majority of the debt that's out there in student loan debt is really to those people that have professional degrees, as hard as that is to believe.
The conversation, you're exactly right, isn't around belittling certain degrees and what they make. I mean, that's not an issue.
No.
I mean, we need all kinds of careers. But the conversation is around how distorted supply and demand for this has become.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's a reason supply and demand always gets distorted. I mean, no one's saying we don't need teachers there's a lot of valid careers that just don't happen to make as much but are extremely valid. It's just the conversation around, one, why prices have gone up so much, because there's endless demand for it.
Yeah.
And no one pushes back on price, because why would you? If you can get as much student loans as you possibly want, just about. Meanwhile, that person couldn't go buy a car, couldn't go buy a house, couldn't probably get a
Have so
credit
much
card
debt,
even
yeah.
if they're on their own. I mean,
And that's-
how can you not get any of those things, yet you can go take out hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans for something that is not going to return that amount of money?
That's a great question.
So, on the flip side, what do you think is a way in which the government could encourage people to get jobs, right? Either in their field or not, according to what they graduate, but instead of basically creating inflation, right, or driving up the cost of higher education, what is a way? I mean, so coming to my mind is, wouldn't it be awesome if we could have a way in which we could incentivize companies as they're hiring new associates, that they could have a loan forgiveness program, and it could be relatively small. I know that the federal government already does that from, my past history, that for certain public loans that they would pay back a certain percentage if you were working for the federal government. Is there something to be said for government providing incentives to companies to hire people and provide that as an incentive? I don't know how that works, but I'm like, rather than just handing you $50,000.
Well, the thing is, Courtney,
but it incentivizes them to work.
At one point, companies did do a lot more of that, and you will find some massive companies that have the means to do that. For instance, my first employer in Baltimore, a firm called Mercantile Safe Deposit and Trust Company, for all intents and purposes, paid for my MBA, which I got at night, and I went to night school for a few years and got it. All I had to do was make a B or an A, and I'd submit my expense, and they paid for it. Then again, the cost of my MBA was not terribly much back then. I was going to a public school, and this was before tuition inflation had really gone through the roof. Each year I think my MBA program cost $4,000 a year or something like that. So even back then it wasn't a horrific amount. Whereas now, take someone who wants to go to Stanford to get an MBA, or go to Birmingham Southern no longer has that program, or Alabama, or UAB, or Auburn, and over various online classes. We're talking about tens and tens of thousands of dollars to get some of these degrees, far more so, obviously on an absolute basis, but even on a relative basis than what it was not so long ago. I'd say thanks to the government flooding the market with all this money, that it makes it difficult for employers to sit there and say, we can absorb this cost. Really. We've looked into, and we'll help out and all that stuff, but paying for a designation is a hell of a lot less expensive than paying for an accredited 2 or 3 year MBA program, which will run into close to $100,000. That's asking employers to eat that amount of money that's going to be a sticky wicket.
The only way I see to really fix this issue and fix the issue of continuously increasing costs is to normalize the supply and demand of it again. And I think that is going to be a difficult process, but I think it involves things like probably stricter lending requirements based on what you're expected to do with that money. It's the only loan I think you can get that you don't really need to tell the people what exactly you're going to be doing with the money.
Right.
And so that has to be
And they have no guarantee that you'll be able to pay it back.
It's bonkers that this is as free-flowing as it is. And unless that's fixed, colleges aren't going to have any reason to slow down on the price hikes of tuition and everything they pay for. And that has to be fixed. I get incentivizing companies to pay for part of it, but all that does is, I think, continue to kick the can down the road of continuously increasing costs for higher education.
Well, that's the whole thing. If let's say we just wipe out the $1.6 trillion, I don't think right now that's not what's on the table. But if we start at 10,000 and then we move to 50,000, which the narrative is now, at some point it's going to be all of it, and that's how I think it'll work. And so it'll add $1.6 trillion to our accumulated debt. Okay, well, we've just added $3 or $4 trillion this past year, and people could make that argument that it's really an overall drop in the bucket compared to our overall level of indebtedness. However, this is a never-ending pile of money.
Right.
So if you forgive debt now, why even bother having student loans moving forward? You can just sit there and say, guess what, guys? Tuition everywhere across the country is paid by the government, and if that's the case, then why keep the cost down?
Or what if the government's going to give everybody $50,000, then give it to everybody who has a child. They get $50,000 into a 529 plan. You can't touch it. You get penalized if you touch it, and then you let it grow for 18 years, and whatever they have is their money to go to college.
With 4 and if 6 and under or 8 and under, that sounds pretty attractive, doesn't it?
Right. It would incentivize.
But this still just doesn't seem to be fixing the issue. I think there has to be a
No, of course it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I think you have skin in the game for wanting money.
That sounds like a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Just wait a few years.
Well, no, I need it now so I can invest.
Okay, my kids, Annie's out of college.
But there's all these ways they're talking about fixing it, wiping it out, 10,000, 50,000. none of that is going to, they wipe it out. Why wouldn't people go get even more student loan debt under the expectation that it's going to happen again? I mean, it's the same thing with stimulus. You have people who are perpetual, students, right? All they want to do is just be in school. Yeah, it's all of academia. Right. It's the whole problem with academia.
Yeah, that's the whole deal. I mean, it's hey, gosh, I don't have to pay this back?
They'll surely wipe it again in a few years.
I will tell you, there are plenty of people that I went to college with who got advanced degrees that would get these loans, and they would get so much extra money, more than what they actually needed, right, to pay their tuition, but to live off of. And so then some of them invested in the market, some of them went on trips because they're like, I mean, might as well use it. I mean, it's the same thing with working for the government. When you have a set budget, if you don't spend it, you lose it for the next year. So then you buy things you don't even need.
That's not really just the government.
That's business.
Right, but that's if you're given a budget, you're incentivized to use it all, or you lose it because you've been efficient. And that's the same thing that we're doing with.
Well, the thing about it is, I mean, kind of taking a look at should we do it or should we not do it. The truth is, financially, I don't see how this makes sense. It makes sense you can make an argument the first time you do it. Boy, we're going to help these people out. And that plays on heartstrings. I mean, it really does. Yeah. And then that's what we're playing on, trying to get votes. Let's be honest here. We're playing on heartstrings, trying to get votes, certain element of votes, just lock those in. But if I forgive Courtney Truss's $10,000 worth of student, how's that really benefit society? It benefits Courtney.
Right.
And you can make the argument, well, she has more money to spend on other stuff. Well, gee whiz, that's kind of, I mean, I could say the same thing about reducing marginal tax rates, which people seem to don't like terribly. No, you can't reduce marginal tax rates, all that stuff. Well, how's that really any different in a lot of ways about reducing, forgiving everyone's debt?
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying you don't have to pay the government back. You borrowed money from the government. You don't have to pay it back. But these other people have to pay taxes. These other people have to pay taxes.
Well, can you not incentivize with them filing their taxes? I mean, I know there's some incentive already for I think interest paid. Maybe. I mean, I'm not a tax expert.
But the thing is, if you make over a certain amount, it's a pretty low amount in terms of household AGI. You don't get to deduct that interest. I think, I forget what it was. Because we had to pay back best student loans, and I had some small student loan debt when for the year I took off after college and spent it in law school. I had
little hiatus.
A little hiatus. A lot of fun those 9, 12 months or whatnot. But we had a little bit. At the first part of our marriage, we could deduct it, but it didn't take terribly long, 2 or 3 years before we made too much for that. We just couldn't do that.
Well, maybe
anymore.
You increase that threshold and you say not just interest, but all of it. If you're working,
seems like none of this fixes the issue.
No, it doesn't.
This is all just helping people now and hurting the future, just like stimulus payments, just like all this stuff that is kicking the can down the road.
So are y'all saying that you feel like if the government, right, or some higher being, right? Higher being dictates that college can only cost a set amount.
I'm not a theologian, but I'm pretty certain in my understanding of the Bible is God doesn't care too much about what college tuition costs.
Well, but y'all are saying that somebody's going to have to basically force to drive down the cost of higher education.
There will have to be a pain point.
So who does that? The government?
Well, because the government pays for higher education by and large with $1.6 trillion outstanding. That's not all the money that's already been repaid. They are the lever. And if they get out of the business of making as many loans or as many easy loans as is possible, you will see higher education costs start to go down.
If it starts to go down, then that means they can't afford to pay the professors as much.
Well, you make it sound like it's a fully bad thing. I think there is a lot of fat that could easily be trimmed off these.
There is a ton of fat. I mean, and probably get a bunch of negative phone calls and all this stuff.
Yeah, because you have a group of people that are going to be affected.
Well, you'll have a group of people you would not be surprised by the amount of administrative costs there are at some of these larger universities. I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous. And I'm not going to sit there and talk about how things were back when I was a young man and all that stuff. And obviously I graduated from college in 1990. It's been some time ago. But the stark difference between how we lived and went to school in 1990 compared to how John is currently living and going to school in 2022 is absolutely amazing. I've been to plenty of colleges, and just the facilities that they have now.
It's unnecessary.
The gyms, the meal plans, the fast food restaurants that you can buy with your Tiger Dollars or Panther Bucks or all that stuff. You got all this stuff that really doesn't go to educate you. It just goes to attract students to pay these big fat bills. I mean, so that's where a huge chunk of a lot of this money, in my estimation, hasn't necessarily gone to educate kids. It's gone to improve the overall recruit and all that stuff. And so I would argue with someone probably over a drink or two that we've spent a lot of money to make college more fun and accessible, but all we've really done is make it terribly much more listen to that
Sound effects.
much more expensive, while not really increasing the level of training and education to the same degree that the price of tuition is.
And if the lending requirement said, okay, we'll give you this $20,000-$30,000 a year for salary, what is your plan with this? And they say whatever their career is, there needs to be a conversation about, okay, is this someone we would loan money to under normal conditions, someone who is making this much 4 years from now, maybe.
Well, you're talking about the loaning side, but from capping, I mean, what do y'all think is a reasonable price in which they would cap it?
Cap what?
How much it costs to go to college?
I don't think you need to.
Well, isn't that what y'all said?
I think under normal
is that
supply and demand, I think it's not a free market.
If they can't get a loan for whatever amount they want, you're saying if they can only get a loan for $60,000, then these
people will have
colleges
to make
are
an
have to
actual
adjust.
decision on whether this degree that they wanted beforehand is worth it, or if they can even do that. There needs to be more not regulation, but just a better conversation and stricter requirements around giving out this money. I mean, giving out money free never works out.
Right.
I mean, we're seeing it in inflation we've talked about. I mean, it never does well for the market, for the economy, for consumers, for anybody to just give things out for free.
Yeah. I just need this bubble to pop by the time. I need 10 years. It needs to happen within 10 years. So I can afford to send my kids to college.
Well, the thing is, I mean, Courtney, if the number of Asian students largely keep declining coming here to the United States, we're probably going to see some ceiling on tuition increases anyhow. But the federal government and its profligacy and dumping money into higher education really has been the major cause of why things cost so much now. And
so are you saying that people internationally coming to the United States is driving up cost?
Yeah, it's supply and demand.
So
That's
how many? What is
it.
do you have a ballpark idea of how many people are actually coming to the U.S. for college?
Why is she asking me questions?
Tough question.
Why did I even have that come out of my mouth?
The listeners want to know, John.
It's truly hundreds of thousands. I mean,
do you think COVID had part to do with that, or
no? I think we've always attracted a lot of international students from China, India, and what have you. And what's really happened is the Chinese secondary education system has gotten far more advanced than it was two or three decades ago. So there are more education options in these countries where we used to import students from.
Interesting.
So there you go. Obviously, we've gone on a while, and I think we might be trading a little bit of perspectives here. I'm facing this a little bit differently, but knowing that
you're already paying for it right now.
Well, I'm paying for college right now. I've already paid for Annie. We've paid down whatever student loan debt and we're kind of out of the discussion for all intents and purposes. Courtney is looking at a dozen children coming, maybe not quite a dozen, but a dozen kids coming through the system. Sam, you're not worried about this right now.
If there's not stricter lending requirements by the time my kids are going to college, I will be the stricter lending requirement for it.
Listen to that, the hammer.
Oh no, when he has girls and they want to go somewhere, he's going to be wrapped around their finger. Whatever they
it's
want.
Not Sam, trust me, it's true.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, we always love to hear from you all. So if you have any comments or questions, please, by all means, let us know. You can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. As always, if you're interested in reading more, hearing more of what we have to say or how we think, please go to oakworth.com and take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab for all kinds of exciting information. Give you all one last chance to say something about this topic.
That's all I got.
That's it, John.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.